You can't be serious, man. Y'all ain't never stopping me. Let's go. It's fourth down and three to go. No time to waste. We on the road. No timeout, baby. Do we gotta know? We gotta get the rock across the goal. Even though it looks impossible, must realize it's another obstacle. Gotta learn to step up, give room for growth. Turning back now's not optional. This is the battle for my life. Win or lose, I done earned my stripes. Can't wish to get through every day without a dream to finish tonight. Hate me for no reason why. You can't stop me between the lines. Can't feel the rhythm without me and crying. You can't make a play, so stay on the side. One of those phenomenons. Black war paint just to block the sun. Give me the rock and see me run. Do all these dudes and you're for fun. Fuck what you thought, I'm number one. Yes, I'm touching any weather. Back to the ataque. Go see you're sending out leads to any taker. Break away, speak. I'll see you later. Hater, touchdown maker. Earn my paper. Marvin is my number one major. Measure up better than all these fakers. Bury my pose like the Undertaker. Just don't make the Marvin is my number one major. Measure up better than all these fakers. Bury my pose like the Undertaker. Y'all can't hear what y'all cannot see. I can take it to the house, fun to 50. Can't find a defender that's gonna drop me. It's all skill, but no Hail Mary. And it takes dedication and much energy. That's not me, just got to be. Be true to yourself on that with DC. They don't take no shit from anybody. Just strip it up and let's get ready. Goal line is stacked and packed and heavy. Jump over like I'm ready. Celebrating the rest of no fatigue. Wake up, you ain't heard the news. Fast breaks on your screen. We making moves. Welcome everybody to the Friday edition of the Fast Break Sports Hour. Thank you for joining me here on YouTube Live. Always live. No cuts, no retakes, no edits. And not hating on anybody that does that, to each their own. But might as well do it live because that's what we do here on the Fast Break Sports Hour. And this is the week one preview, the NFL edition. Still going to throw in a couple of side notes, whether it be Major League Baseball and one small NBA side note, which isn't that small because it comes from my heart. But we'll get to that towards the end of the show. Thursday night football, man. That was somewhat of a whammy when you think about all the hype, everything that came into, man, just talking about the game for a week now, weeks, leading into the start of the game, which was delayed due to lightning, due to rain. You see that more often now lately where it starts to rain and you got to put a hold on the game, whether it's during the game or at the beginning of the game. And that's what happened, as opposed to it being a 8:20 Eastern time start. It was delayed about 35 minutes and they kicked off just before 9 p.m. Eastern time, 6 p.m. where I'm at here in the Pacific time zone. And again, it was a hard game to watch, not just talking about all the penalties, but just little mistakes. You can tell it's week one. You can tell these teams are still trying to, get under their feet and get going. But you saw a lot of, on the offensive side, a lot of mistakes when it came to timing. You saw a lot of the throws, whether it be Nick Foles, whether it be Matt Ryan. You saw a lot of the throws be slightly late, and which caused, a turnover from Nick Foles' part. He threw a seam to the tight end, Dallas Goddard. I believe that's how you pronounce his last name. It was slightly late. The tight end was open in the middle of the field on a seam route. It was somewhat of a post. And slightly late, he got hit. Balls in the air, intercepted by Deion Jones, a flashy linebacker for the Atlanta Falcons. And on the other side, you had Matt Ryan with a late throw, get picked off, going to Julio Jones. And that's the difference between a elite quarterback and what I thought Matt Ryan was getting to, that was showing me otherwise yesterday. But I think it had more to do with, man. So for those of you that didn't watch it, the Falcons lost. Eagles won, defending champions. They prevailed 18-12, though it looked like they were going to have trouble scoring any kind of points. And I'm speaking both sides. More so the Philadelphia Eagles. It just looked like they couldn't get anything going. Nick Foles was, throughout the game, safety net, safety blanket passes, little 4 or 5 yard passes. And it showed when Nelson Aguilar is your leading receiver.
with 8 receptions for 35 yards. That sounds like a running back, you know, carrying the ball 8 times for 35 yards. No, this is 8 receptions for your number one receiver because Alshon Jeffrey was out. Nelson Aguilar, 8 receptions, 35 yards, and just nothing really going on the offensive side. Jay Ajayi had a couple of good runs in there, and he was the spark of the team, being able to get those 2 touchdowns. And that was the difference between the Eagles and the Falcons is the Eagles actually stuck with the run game. And I said it yesterday on yesterday's show. I said that early on in week 1, week 2, the teams that can solidify their defense and that are able to run the ball, those are the teams that are going to have a better shot to win because these teams are still trying to figure out timing and whatnot. Not to say that there won't be teams that air it out, but when you have teams that are still trying to figure things out and are on the go. The Philadelphia Eagles, with them not having Carson Wentz, that's definitely a team that's trying to figure things out on the go. Have a little bit more on Carson Wentz here in a little bit. But the Eagles stuck with it. They stuck with the run game. It was looking kind of bleak there for a little bit with the Atlanta Falcons being up 6-0 for a lot of the game, then 6-3. And it was like that for a while. And then the Philadelphia Eagles were able to punch it in with Jay Ajayi and make it 10-6. Falcons came back after a turnover, shorter field. They were able to punch it in with Tevin Coleman, and Matt Bryant misses the extra point, makes it 12-10. And again, the Eagles come back in the middle of the fourth quarter, get another score from Jay Ajayi, get the 2-point conversion from Jay Ajayi. So you fantasy owners of Jay Ajayi had a wonderful game, and you fantasy owners of Julio Jones had a wonderful game. Though no touchdowns, but yardage-wise and reception-wise, Julio Jones was on his game. Just wasn't able to crack the goal line. And I think getting back to the Falcons, what did them in was the coach, man. The coach for the Atlanta Falcons, Dan Quinn. You go as your coach goes when it comes to the personality. To me, Dan Quinn doesn't look like he's a risk taker, and it seems like he plays it safe when needed. And you saw that. Now, it's a double-edged sword here. Because on the first drive, the Falcons went downfield like nothing. It looked like their opening script was good to go and they were going to punch it in. But once they got to the red zone, once they got inside the 10, they couldn't figure things out. And at that point, when you're at the 1 yard line and it's 4th and goal, hindsight 2020, but I said it before. You could take my word for it or not. But my whole thing was you're on the road, you take the points, you kick the field goal because the last thing you need is to get stopped after a wonderful drive like that and then come out with 0 points. And that's exactly what happened. They went forward on 4th down, got stopped after a drive where it just seemed like everything was working and the Falcons were able to do whatever they wanted. They even threw in a Julio Jones reverse in there, which was pretty good run for 11 yards. And things were clicking for the Falcons. And I think, with Dan Quinn being kind of safe with it, it's not so much him being safe going for it on 4th down, but the play call was kind of safe. You got Julio Jones out there, throw it up there, see what happens. It didn't work out at the end of the game, and it didn't work out at the end of the game in the divisional round. But to me, that's your best option. Julio Jones, always inside the red zone. You got to throw it to his direction or use some misdirection with him because that's where the defense is going to lean towards. And if you think about it, had they kicked that field goal, it's a chip shot. I know Matt Bryant missed an extra point, but it's a chip shot. Had they made that or went for that field goal, and you look at it towards the end of the game, you're looking at 18-15, not 18-12. So then the Falcons aren't forced to try to score a touchdown. All they need is a field goal to tie the game, send it to overtime, and a totally different ball game. So it's little decisions like that put coaches in an elite part of the game. Well, not even elite, but just coaches that under pressure know they just make the right calls. And you have some of the coaches that it seems like they're always making the right calls. You look at coaches like obviously Bill Belichick. Seems like he's always making the right call towards the end of games. I like to see someone like Sean Payton, or say someone like Sean Payton makes those same kind of decisions. And Doug Peterson, when we talk about teams taking the personality of the coach, Doug Peterson's a free flowing spirit. He doesn't seem like he's one of those coaches that are just on the players, what, but he seems like he's open to everything, and you see it with the play calling. The most explosive play being the Philly special again to Nick Foles. This time Nick Foles gets a bigger chunk of yardage and shows Tom Brady how to catch the ball while he's running and pick up some yardage. So whether it was the defining moment for the Eagles or not, it gave them a shot to continue to the drive and to always just put some wrinkle in there so the Falcons were always on their toes. It didn't matter what part of the game it was. So the Eagles were able to get drives going towards the end of the game and solidify that touchdown at the end, towards the middle of the fourth quarter, to put the dagger, because the Falcons, again, under pressure, inept. It seems like, just going back to the year they went to the Super Bowl, when it comes to having to make plays, game deciding plays, they just can't cut it. And I think that's the personality of the coach. And I think they have a lot of things they have to figure, not just red zone, but making decisions at big moments of games. You got to take those 3 points. You're on the road. It's your opening drive. You put 3 points on the board. You put a little bit more pressure because you were up 6-0. So with that, you put up those 3 points. You're looking at a 9-0 game. Maybe that puts a little bit more pressure on Nick Foles to create more, because if you look at Nick Foles' stat line, man, this is a stat line I could have put up as a quarterback. This is backup quarterback numbers when you look at just Nick Foles going 19 for 34, still above 50%. But we talked about this throughout the week. Are we going to get Nick Foles that throws for 70%, which to me was incredible when he did that in the playoffs last year? Or are we going to get the Nick Foles that is mainly around 55, 56, 57%? And that's what you got when you go 19 for 34. You're looking at that 56% range, and that's exactly what he did. And the average was even worse. When you talk about average per completion and per attempt, 117 yards on 19 completions, that sounds like, a running back carrying the ball 19 times for 117 yards, and just pass plays in total 34 times for 117 yards. Man, that's not a good number when you're talking about the pass game. So it just, again, going back to them being even, to them actually continue to run the ball, they ran the ball 27 times. And this is the bigger thing that I have against the Falcons. I talked about the run game yesterday and how they were going to figure that out. Devontae Freeman, he had it going. You have a 6 yard per average, and you're only giving the ball 6 times. It wasn't like at any point of the game you were down until towards the end of the game, and he had 6 carries throughout the game for 36 yards. Your number one running back. And Tevin Coleman didn't follow up with much more either. As a team, they only ran the ball 18 times, but they threw it 43. You throw the ball 43, that to me is more of a stat line of a team that's down 10 points or more throughout the game, and you're having to pass. 18 carries to 43 passes. If the Falcons wanted to solidify this win, it should have been more so 28 carries, maybe 35 passes. Something like that. A little bit more. And don't get me wrong, I mean, Julio Jones had a big game in the passing attack, but you threw the ball 43 times and you didn't complete 50% of your passes. So it's all for naught. It's just a lot of passes they were just thrown too late. And Matt Ryan took 4 sacks. Just the pass game was just horrible when you look at it at a whole, when you look at how many passes were thrown, when you look at the end result. The pass game did not result in any touchdowns, resulted in an interception, resulted in 4 sacks, resulted in 22 incompletions. You run the ball maybe 7, 8 more times, you might have a different result. There's no reason why Devontae Freeman shouldn't have ran the ball at least 15, 16 times. Ran the ball 6 times. And with the defense playing pretty good, that's a recipe for success. keep feeding Devontae Freeman. But there you go again. Falcons outsmarting themselves, not doing what works. Not going to the well and getting water. They're trying to dig somewhere else. The well already has water. Go back to the well. Keep getting the water. There's no reason to dig somewhere else for water. But that's what the Falcons seem like they do. They keep tricking themselves into thinking that they're ahead of the game when they're definitely not. You stick to what works. You have Julio Jones there always, and go to him when needed. But that's man. I really don't know what to say about the Atlanta Falcons. But my prediction of them not making the playoffs is right on, because you cannot lose to a backup quarterback like Nick Foles, which they did. And yesterday I talked about how me taking the Eagles out of the Super Bowl spot that I had them and winning the Super Bowl and repeating, deservedly so, because I thought Carson Wentz was going to be ready. So now there's reports, and this is what I was fearing, was not only is he going to miss one game, but it's going to go into week 3, week 4, possibly week 5. And great job by Doug Peterson to get this win. But if Carson Wentz misses 3 more games, even if Philly ends up 3-1 or 2-2, it's going to take a game or so for Carson Wentz to get going. And though I still see them as a playoff team, they're not going to be the representative in the NFC for that Super Bowl, simply because I had Carson Wentz starting from the get and then flying high and getting that number 1 seed. That's not going to happen now. That's just the way I view things. So the Eagles will still make the playoffs, but they will not be the number 1 seed like I had predicted a month ago, thinking Carson Wentz was going to be there week 1. I have a new representative, and we're going to get to that shortly. But Carson Wentz, again, there's that thing. What if Nick Foles starts to ratchet it up a little bit? It was a bad game by Nick Foles, below average. 1 pick, no scores, 19 for 34 for 117 yards. That's not going to cut it. It cut it yesterday because they were playing against a team that doesn't know what to do. The Falcons are a team that doesn't know what to do and when to do it. So Falcons will not be in the playoffs. I have said that a month ago. I continue with that statement. Though they are in my top 10 in the rankings before the week started. But Tuesday, when we revisit the top 10, you best believe the Falcons will not be in the top 10. And again, I did not have them make the playoffs. Even more so now, I do not have them make the playoffs. Not because of one loss, but I just don't like their team. I don't like the way their team is ran offensively. They have a lot more weapons than what they show and what they provide. And to me, I think at times they try to be a little bit too flashy when you can just go with what works. Run the ball with those 2 horses, Julio Jones. Run the ball with those 2 horses, Julio Jones. There's no reason to spread the ball around for what? You have the best receiver in the game, in my opinion. But that's all I have to say about that when it comes to the Philadelphia Eagles and the Atlanta Falcons. You will find out who my new representative in the Super Bowl will be here shortly in a little bit. Carson Wentz, it remains to be seen when he's going to come back. I fear that there's going to be some issues when he does come back, depending on how good Nick Foles plays. And if the Falcons continue to, or not the Falcons, if the Eagles continue to get better and be impressive, win impressively, like I thought they would with Carson Wentz. So we'll see what happens with that.
And that's the bottom line, 'cause Stone Cold
Yeah, basically. And that's the bottom line. So let's get to week 1 and let's get it going. Let's start off with the early games, and I'm just going to run through these games, have a little input on each game, but we're going to run through these games. I'm going to give you my prediction, what I think is going to happen, and what to look for. So with that being said, man, you know what? Let's get some music going. Let's just do that. Just, a little light music on the side, just to soften up the mood and get things going. But let's do this right here. So, we just heard Stone Cold Steve Austin, right? So we might as well get to the Stone Cold Steve Austin theme song. If there's not an ad, and there better not be an ad, and there isn't. So there's that. Glass shatters and all, man. You Stone Cold Steve Austin fans, y'all know what's up. Drink a beer to that. Well, let's start off with the first game. Cincinnati Bengals at the Indianapolis Colts. I expect the Bengals to get back to their explosive offensive ways for this game, and be slightly better than they were last year. Andy Dalton, to me, last year took a step back. A.J. Green had some injury issues. Joe Mixon still hasn't got into that featured role where he's the number one back and doing things with the rock. But I expect it to start week one. I expect Joe Mixon to have a pretty decent game, hit that century mark on the ground. They got to feed him the ball. A.J. Green is going to probably catch a touchdown in the air. Andrew Luck remains to be seen what he's going to look like in the regular season. Was fairly decent in the preseason. Hopefully there's no setbacks, but it's going to take a couple games for their offense to get going. I have the Bengals winning in Indianapolis 20-17. Bengals start off 1-0. Probably might prove me wrong, but that's what I got for that game. Bills at the Ravens. There is no way the Buffalo Bills are going to go into Baltimore with that defense, with them wanting to prove that what happened at the end of last year was a fluke, with the Ravens losing to the Cincinnati Bengals last game of the season to get to the playoffs. Weren't able to do it. Andy Dalton was like, y'all ain't going to the playoffs. I'm going to send the Bills to the playoffs. So here's coming full circle. Now the Ravens get to take it to the Bills. The Bills, no more Tyrod Taylor. Josh Allen will not start. We have Nathan Peterman making the start for the Baltimore Ravens. It didn't matter who was going to start this game. The Ravens were going to be on that quarterback. And Joe Flacco has some things to prove. Michael Crabtree, John Brown, Alex Collins in the backfield. Defense still intact. I like the Ravens 27-10. Easy win. Never a thought. And if you have the Ravens defense, put them in, please. That's probably the best defense to put in this week, my opinion. Buccaneers at the Saints. Ryan Fitzpatrick making his start for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Wait, I shouldn't start with that? Okay, probably right. Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints welcoming the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and whoever they got at quarterback, Ryan Fitzpatrick. But Drew Brees, I got big things in store for Drew Brees this year. You know, not to give anything away. But Drew Brees, Alvin Kamara, yeah, Mark Ingram suspended. They don't need him, especially not for this game. Alvin Kamara is going to have a huge game. You got Michael Thomas. And watch out. They did sign Cameron Meredith, but watch out. Maybe not this week, but as the season gets into, the middle, late of the season, at some point, watch out for a receiver, Traquan Smith, rookie, third-round pick. I think he's going to be the number 2 before the season's up. Man, he's going to be explosive. You heard it here first. Traquan Smith for the New Orleans Saints. It's going to be an easy win. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Peyton Barber might have a decent game. You still got Mike Evans back there. You got Deshaun Jackson, who's finally healthy. But with that being said, New Orleans Saints, they don't skip a beat. 30-17. Same old thing. You're not going to beat the Saints in the dome. 30-17 over the Buccaneers. Texans at the Patriots. Possibly the game of the day. Could be the game of the day. And with the score that I gave, it's probably the game of the day. Sunday morning. Deshaun Watson, TB12. What more can you ask for, man? These offenses are going to be full force. Though you like the Texans defense with all those guys back there, with J.J. Watt leading that squad. But it's going to be the same old story. Tom Brady gets them in field goal position, win a field goal at the end of the game, 27-24. Man, if you have any of the starters on each side, throw them in there, because I don't care about the Texans defense. I think Tom Brady's still going to do what he does. He's going to feed his receivers a lot of short 5-6 yard passes and see what happens after that. The question, though, is the run game for the Patriots. Who's going to be back there? Questions about Rex Burkhead. Questions about Sony Michel. So I don't like Patriot running backs anyways when it comes to fantasy football, because there's never a steady one. They just rotate those guys. But I got the Patriots pulling this one out, and I have big things for the Texans this year when it comes to them getting to the playoffs and Deshaun Watson possibly being the MVP for this year. 27-24 Patriots. 49ers and Jimmy G going to Minnesota and Kirk Cousins. Dalvin Cook is back. Stephon Diggs is still there. Adam Thielen's still there. I like the Niners this year, but I think it's going to take a little bit of time. And this is the home opener for the Minnesota Vikings. They're coming off a NFC Championship appearance, and Kirk Cousins is going to want to prove why he got the big contract, and they're gonna squeak this one out. Barely 23-21 over Jimmy G and the 49ers. Tennessee Titans at the Miami Dolphins. Mike Vrabel, new coach for the Tennessee Titans, will make a difference, especially in this game. You know, I think Marcus Mariota is going to benefit from Mike Vrabel's personality. There's that word again. The team takes on the coach's personality. Mike Vrabel is a killer in my book. So I got Marcus Mariota versus Ryan Tannehill. I like Mariota slightly better than Tannehill. And in this game, it's tough to win in Miami, especially in September. Very tough. But the Titans are able to squeak this one out as well, just like the Vikings squeaked it out against the Niners. The Titans will go to Miami, and they will take this by a field goal. It's going to be a field goal game. 19-16, Tennessee Titans. Man, Derrick Henry's going to have to eat a lot of bananas so he don't cramp up. It's the potassium, man. You know. Jacksonville Jaguars. Tom Coughlin going back to MetLife Stadium. Scene of the crime versus the New York Giants. Eli Manning, Saquon Barkley, Odell Beckham, Jalen Ramsey. You know how that works. And yeah, this music stopped and it really pisses me off. Well, let's just roll with it. Jalen Ramsey, is he going to get in Odell Beckham's head? That's going to be something to look out for. That's the game I'm going to be watching most of the day in the morning. I flip back and forth. I like watching all the games. I might have two TVs going, one with the game mix or the red zone channel, whatever you want to call it, and then one with a game that I really want to see in depth. So with that being said, will the Jaguars continue their winning ways as from last year, and do the Giants come back from their horrid 2017 season? And with the new additions and with Odell Beckham coming back, does that offense get going against the Jacksonville Jaguars defense, who has talent at every level and almost at every position, and great talent? So it's going to be a good test for that Giants offense, who I expect big things from. And Eli Manning, this is it. This is the time where you start thinking, if he cannot get this team to the playoffs, it's a done deal. He's not going to get any team to the playoffs. The Giants will be done if they don't start this week. If not done, but if they don't start this year getting that roller coaster ride back to the playoffs. And with week ones are roller coasters, but I do have the Giants slightly over the Jacksonville Jaguars just because they got Blake Bortles and no receivers. They got Fournette. So it's going to be on Fournette and on that defense. But I think Saquon Barkley, Odell Beckham, Sterling Shepard, Evan Ingram going to be a little 20-16. New York Giants over the Jacksonville Jaguars. Pittsburgh Steelers at the Cleveland Browns. This is my upset special of the week. I have the Cleveland Browns with the Le'Veon Bell less Pittsburgh Steelers. Cleveland Browns 24. Pittsburgh Steelers 23. Yes, you heard it here first. I have the Browns upsetting the Pittsburgh Steelers. James Conner is a decent running back. Ben Roethlisberger is an awesome quarterback. Antonio Brown, we already know about him. Juju Smith-Schuster, we know about him. But I think the Browns are out to prove something in week one. Now, I don't have the Browns winning 7 or 8 games this year. More like 5-6. But I expect them to come out full force week one and show the NFL that they're not the same old Browns, and to show the Pittsburgh Steelers, their big brother, that they're here and they're coming. And I like the combination of Tyrod Taylor and Jarvis Landry. You have Carlos Hyde and Duke Johnson in the backfield. Josh Gordon going to be full force. Hey, don't take them lightly. They're not a fringe playoff team, but they're going to show you something on Sunday. No Le'Veon Bell. That's surprising still. Has not shown up. Will he show up before week one? Won't matter if he shows up or not at this point. He's not going to play. James Conner might have tough sledding against the Cleveland Browns. I really like the Cleveland Browns defense. I think they're good at stopping the run. That's why I got the Browns 24, Pittsburgh 23 in my upset special of the week. Let's get to the late games. Dallas Cowboys at the Carolina Panthers. Man, I really like the Carolina Panthers offense this year with Christian McCaffrey. Now I know Curtis Samuel, he's not going to be a go, having issues with the heart. Hopefully everything's good with him. But man, you still got Funchess over there. They got the rookie receiver Moore. They got Greg Olson at tight end again, and they picked up C.J. Anderson to be the backup running back. But Christian McCaffrey, I think, is going to get the ball a lot more this year. More explosive plays. Cam Newton's going to be the deciding factor. When you talk about the run pass option, he's going to be the deciding factor as to when he lets Christian McCaffrey just take the ball and go with it, or when he holds it, passes it. We all know all that. But I like the Panthers in this game. I think they're going to start off very fast, and I think the Cowboys are going to be playing catch up. So you're not going to really see Ezekiel Elliott at his best because Dak Prescott's going to have to be throwing the ball. I like the Panthers in this game from beginning to the end, 28-17. And the Panthers also in my top 10, as I will get to here in a little bit. The Cowboys not so much in my top 10. But again, Panthers 28, Dallas Cowboys 17, just keeping it real. Kansas City Chiefs at the Los Angeles Chargers. No Joey Bosa. He's been seen in a walking boot. That just came out earlier today. And you have to wonder, foot issue, is he going to be ready here soon? Is it going to be something that lingers throughout the season? They were my Super Bowl pick in the AFC this year. Now, I'm going to trust that Joey Bosa comes back at full force at some time by week 5, 6, 7, 8, so that they can have that run. I still expect them to make the playoffs with or without Bosa, but with Bosa, that's going to be the determining factor if they get to the Super Bowl. I'm not changing my pick. I still got the Chargers in the Super Bowl, and I have the Chargers defeating the Kansas City Chiefs with new quarterback Patrick Mahomes, who's going to be explosive, but there's going to be a learning curve there. Even with all the weapons, you look at Kareem Hunt, you look at Sammy Watkins, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, but they lost a lot on defense and a lot of questions there. And like Los Angeles, their defense, again, albeit with Bosa being there or not, at early on, I'm still okay with that. But later on, they're going to need him for that Super Bowl run. Melvin Gordon, Melvin Ingram, running back, edge rusher, a couple of Melvins going to be big factors in this game against Kansas City Chiefs. And you got Phillip Rivers, man. Phillip, don't ever cry me a Rivers no more. He's going to get the job done this year. Another guy that I like for MVP candidate. Watch out for Mike Williams, and obviously you got Keenan Allen at the receiver position. I have the Chargers beating the Chiefs 23-20. Much as that hurts me to talk about it because they're AFC West foes and we're all about the Broncos, but we stay unbiased. I'm going to keep it real with y'all. Redskins at the Arizona Cardinals. This is going to be about the running backs, because neither team to me has depth at receiver at this point, or they haven't created the depth yet, especially with Alex Smith just coming in with a new team. I mean, you got Josh Doxson back there. You got Jamison Crowder. You got Paul Richardson. But who's going to be the guy that steps up? Who's going to be the guy? And then you always have questions about Reed, the tight end, if he's going to stay healthy. If he stays healthy, that's a team to watch. But I'm just going to go with the trend that he probably will not be healthy throughout the season. And it's going to be on Adrian Peterson's hands. Yes, Adrian Peterson's hands. Early on, I think he's going to have a lot of carries. I think they're going to use him up like the first 2 or 3 games. And then probably use a running back roulette type thing with all these other running backs. When Samaje Perine comes back, you got Rob Kelly, you got Chris Thompson. So remains to be seen, but Peterson's going to get a lot of work early on. Easily going to have 20 carries against his Arizona Cardinal team. So when you look at the running backs, you got to look at the Cardinals and David Johnson. Still waiting on a new contract. I believe something will get done here within the next month or so here in September, because they don't want to run into the Le'Veon Bell issues. 26-year-old running back, give him his 4-year extension, get it done, make the guy happy. David Johnson, to me, is going to be the best running back this year when you just look at overall value and statistics. It remains to be seen if he's able to catapult them to the playoffs, but that's going to be on Sam Bradford. Can he stay healthy? Again, another guy who in the past has not been able to stay healthy, which has caused this trend of not trusting him as a starter. So with that being said, it's a game where the Cardinals are at home. They're going to have the fans behind them. But when you have to pick running backs, man, you got to get David Johnson over Adrian Peterson. So I have the Cardinals barely beating the Redskins, 21-18. Close game, but Cardinals prevail. Redskins have some things to figure out at the receiver position, as do the Cardinals. But again, the running back thing with David Johnson, to me, is what prevails and what makes it an easier choice over Adrian Peterson and the Redskins. Both defenses, man, especially the Redskins, a lot of questions. The Cardinals, I like their defense slightly better when it comes to the pass game. You saw turnovers galore. That's what they're going to be known for this year, creating those turnovers. So, again, 21-18, Arizona Cardinals. And the last game of the afternoon, before I get to the primetime games, the Seattle Seahawks at the Denver Broncos. You look at the Denver Broncos and how they start their years and how they start their seasons. In the last 18 years, their home openers are 17-1. Man, that trend's going to continue. I don't see that stopping. You see a lot of the changes that the Seattle Seahawks had in the defensive back area. Even though they're getting Earl Thomas back, you have to wonder what kind of impact he's going to make in that game against the Denver Broncos. But Denver Broncos defensively should be full force attacking Russell Wilson. And Russell Wilson has also lost some pieces on the offensive side. You have to wonder, is Chris Carson going to be able to carry the load? And then they lost Paul Richardson to the Washington Redskins. They also lost Jimmy Graham, who didn't have a lot of receptions last year but had 10 touchdowns. They lost him to Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers. So I like the Denver Broncos and Case Keenum to put up some points and get this victory, 24-16, Denver Broncos over the Seattle Seahawks. Just it's tough to play in Denver early on, and these teams are still, like I was saying earlier, it takes time for these teams to get their feet underneath them, So with them being in high altitude, I mean, I know Seattle's over there where it's rainy and whatever, but this is Denver, and the Broncos will make a statement. 24-16, Denver Broncos out the gates, coming out early, swinging, 24-16. Now let's get to Sunday Night Football. Man, Sunday Night Football has just ratcheted up a little bit. They kicked it up a notch, as Emerald like to say. The cook, the chef dude, it's like, let's kick it up a notch. And they kicked it up a notch when they added Khalil Mack, speaking of the Chicago Bears. Now, he's going to be on somewhat of a pitch count. He's not going to play the whole game like he usually would. Probably look at 60 to 70% of the plays, and he's still going to cause havoc, especially with that offensive line that the Green Bay Packers have. Still kind of iffy, but this is Lambeau Field. This is opening night in Lambeau Field. This is Aaron Rodgers going against little brother, Chicago Bears, and Mitchell Trubisky. I have high hopes for the Bears when it comes to their trajectory from the past years, when it comes to them just getting to like 500. But next year, watch out for the Bears. Next year, watch out for the Bears. So Aaron Rodgers will still continue his domination of the Chicago Bears. They take this game, Sunday Night Football, 27-17. Still going to be fun to see what Khalil Mack can get done in Lambeau Field, going after Aaron Rodgers. And it's good to see Aaron Rodgers back on the field. That's what you want to see. A season without Aaron Rodgers is just not that great of an NFL. We want these quarterbacks out there playing. 27-17, Green Bay over the Chicago Bears. Homeboy Jeff's not going to like that, but I just keep it real. Monday Night Football starts off with the New York Jets at the Detroit Lions in the first of a doubleheader. And the Jets, rookie quarterback, this is going to be an easy game for the Detroit Lions. At no point do I see the Detroit Lions struggling in this game. Now, the score isn't going to wow, that's a big blowout. But I have the Detroit Lions. Sorry, the music I like this music, man. But the Detroit Lions at home, going to take care of business, 24-12. It's not even going to be that close. It's going to be more so like 24-6 throughout the game. But the Lions are just going to be like, we're good. Jets will get a trash touchdown at the end, make it 24-12. They won't get the two-point conversion. Man, I'm giving y'all some details. 24-12. I think this is the year Matthew Stafford has to do something. And we were talking about the Philadelphia Eagles and if they're going to be able to continue their winning ways. Now, I've been thinking about it, even just now. Just right now. I'm going to shock you guys. I said the Philadelphia Eagles will still make the playoffs. No, they won't. They're not going to make the playoffs. I just changed it on y'all in the last 20 minutes. Eagles will not make the playoffs this year. Who's going to take their spot in the wild card is going to be the Detroit Lions. Man, you heard it here first. Detroit Lions are going to be a wild card team. I'm going to get to that here in a little bit. No Philadelphia Eagles in the playoffs. I don't like that quarterback. I don't like the position they're in. And it's going to take a hell of a season from that defense for them to win games. They're not going to be able to win games 18-12 throughout the season. Man, being in that division, it's just going to be tough. That's why I got the Eagles out. But let's get back to the Lions. Lions defeat the Jets 24-12. Shocker. Matthew Stafford, they finally get it done. Their run game is also a running back roulette. But LeGarrette Blount, man, he's just the guy that gets it in the end zone. And if you look at LeGarrette Blount, he's won the last 2 Super Bowls. So that's the reason why I'm going to put the Lions in the playoffs. Because when LeGarrette Blount goes, man, he takes that team to places unknown. So they're going to be in the playoffs. Detroit Lions beating the Jets Monday Night Football. And in the last game of week 1 of the doubleheader, Monday Night Football, Los Angeles Rams go to Oakland and beat down on the Raiders. Man, the Rams are going to come full force. I see it 33-23. Derek Carr is going to be playing catch-up the whole game. And when you got to go against Marcus Peters and Aqib Talib, man, I don't care who you have at receiver. Man, you can have Amari Cooper. You can have Jordy Nelson. You can get Jerry Rice from 1999. You can do whatever you want. You are not going to be able to stay up with the Los Angeles Rams. Todd Gurley, Brandon Cooks, Robert Woods. It's just going to be like nothing for the Los Angeles Rams. They're not going to have any issues throughout the game. 33-23. And that caps it for my week 1 preview of the NFL and just how these games are going to play out. And it's all here, man. Y'all, if I'm wrong, you'll be like, man, you was wrong. I don't care. Man, I'm telling y'all what I believe and what I feel. With that being said, let's get to what I was saying was going to be the change when it comes to the playoff picture. This is it. This is final. I had my predictions 30 days ago, preseason predictions, and I have slight changes on both sides. In the AFC, I have the Patriots at 1, the Texans at 2, the Broncos at 3, the Ravens at 4, the Steelers dropped from 4 to 5 just because of what they're going through right now, and I got the Chargers at 6. Chargers moved down a spot just because of the Joey Bosa thing. That's a big deal. Joey Bosa is an awesome player on that team, and he makes a difference. So, depending on when he comes back, I still see them getting to the playoffs, but they're going to drop from 5 to 6 because I had them 5 previously on my first predictions preseason, but now they're going to be from 5 to 6, and the team that jumped up was the Baltimore Ravens. I knocked the Tennessee Titans out. I like the Ravens this year. So much so they're going to win the division in the North. So those are my 6 teams in the AFC. At the end of the day, I still got the Chargers. I'm going to stay true to form. I'm going to pick the Chargers in the AFC to get to the Super Bowl. Phillip Rivers finally gets to the Super Bowl. But here's where things get crazy in the NFC. Philadelphia Eagles, out of here. Out of here. I don't care you won yesterday. I don't like what I saw. I don't know what you're going to do when Carson Wentz comes back, if he comes back. Hey, again, I am just keeping it real with y'all. And Eagles are not going to make the playoffs. They're not going to make the playoffs as a wild card as nothing. So in the NFC, I got the Saints with the number 1 seed now. Not the Eagles, because I kicked them out. I got the Rams number 2 seed. I got the Green Bay Packers at the number 3 seed. And now I have a new NFC East champion, the New York Giants, the number 4 seed. And then the 2 wild cards, I still got my 1 wild card. The 49ers are still in there, but they go from 6 to 5. And like I said earlier, I got the Detroit Lions sneaking in the playoffs at number 6. And here we go. So who replaces the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl? Because we have the Lions replacing them. We have the Lions replacing them in the playoff picture. And LeGarrette Blount has been to the last 2 Super Bowls and won. Coincidence? I think not. These things align. But no, the Lions do not get to the Super Bowl. No, the Lions do not win the Super Bowl. The New Orleans Saints and Drew Brees, Alvin Kamara, Mark Ingram coming back week 5. Yes, week 5. And that offense and all the young guys on defense that were great last year are going to get that much better. I have the New Orleans Saints getting to the Super Bowl against the Los Angeles Chargers, and I still have the NFC winning the Super Bowl. Drew Brees over Phillip Rivers, pay back some mother because you took my job with the Chargers, so I come back and I kill your dreams, man. You're not winning the Super Bowl. Drew Brees winning the Super Bowl over Phillip Rivers. That was my change. I could say it. It's week 1. That's where we're staying. Saints over the Chargers. Super Bowl 53. Top 10. Now, this was my top 10 before yesterday, okay? My top 10 was Atlanta Falcons at 10. And this doesn't figure in the playoff race. This is just how I have them starting off the season. Falcons at 10. You know that's going to change next week. Panthers at 9. Jacksonville Jaguars at 8. The Packers at 7. The Steelers at 6. That might change if my upset special happens and when the Browns beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. At number 5, I got the Super Bowl 53 champions, New Orleans Saints, yes. Super Bowl 53 champions, New Orleans Saints. At number 4, I got the Houston Texans. Deshaun Watson's back. That's why I put them up this high. I think they're a team to be reckoned with. At number 3, I got the Rams. Another team that they're going to fight for that Super Bowl. It's going to be a great playoffs. New England Patriots, number 2, you can't, man. Patriots are the Patriots. They're number 2. They're the best team in the AFC in these rankings to start off. And my number 1 team, again, this was before yesterday, was the Philadelphia Eagles. Number 1. They're not going to be number 1 unless, these top 5 teams all lose. But the way no. So that's going to change on Tuesday. Again, if you just missed it, the Eagles will not make the playoffs. Obviously not the Super Bowl. They won't be in the playoffs this year. The Lions will take their spot. They'll be the wild card team. Eagles out. Lions in. Saints in the Super Bowl. Eagles out. If y'all can get all that together. But that's what I have for the football thing. Le'Veon Bell, man, I'm done talking about that. I mean, he's going to show up when he shows up. He's the one that's going to either miss out on money or miss out on playing time. It is what it is. You're hoping that David Johnson doesn't run into the same issue where he doesn't get a contract this year and then he gets franchised next year, franchised the year after that. And if you think about it, you're better off just signing him because if not, you're going to end up paying him Le'Veon Bell money for 2 more years. Just give him Le'Veon Bell money for the next 4 years and you're covered. Be smart, Cardinals. Don't do what the Pittsburgh Steelers did. I'm not going to say it. But that's what I have for the NFL. That's all I have for the NFL. And I hope you guys like that part, man. You guys rewind this or just watch it and it's fun. That's week 1 for you. And have fun when you're watching the games, man. It's going to be exciting. Man, you're going to root for your team. Hopefully your team wins. It is what it is. But we're going to smoothly transition to baseball. No more music. Let's get serious here. Let's get a little serious. And baseball, man, you got a big series starting today. A big series in the National League West. Now, we just talk about the National League here. Because like I said, the American League is figured out. We'll talk about the American League once the playoffs start. But that's figured out. It's been figured out for the last month. But the National League, there ain't nothing figured out. I don't care what anybody says. Maybe still the Cubs. I still like the Cubs as the number 1 seed. But things can happen. But when you have the National League West, still crazy as it is, and to have the Rockies, it's a big cushion. When you have a team 1.5, when you have the Rockies 1.5 ahead of the Dodgers and 2.5 ahead of the Diamondbacks, that's a hell of a cushion compared to what it's been lately. But with that being said, you got LA going to Colorado for a 3-game series. And today, it's going to be the biggest series, and it's going to sound like that for the next 3 weeks, where every series is a big series. Yeah, I got a little bit taller because I was kind of like slouching. I was just like oozing down, but I'm a little bit taller now. But big series with the Rockies and the Dodgers. And one thing to note here is Dodgers closer Kenley Jansen will not make the trip because if you remember, he started having issues with his irregular heartbeat when he was in Colorado, and it was the second time it's happened in Colorado. So obviously, it's a smart thing right now, especially him being fresh off of that, because that was only a couple weeks ago, to not have him make the trip. And is that going to play a big part in this series? Because unless the Dodgers find their ways offensively and they're able to hit like they should, these games are going to come down to the wire. And are the Dodgers going to be able to find somebody to withstand the Rockies' arsenal of hitting? Because, they've been on a tear lately, not just winning close games, but their hitting is better. Trevor Story, man, you better knock it off. And, so no Jansen for the whole series. He's not going to be in Colorado. So, Rockies, there you have it. If you're able to have a small lead or the game tied going into the ninth inning or down one, your chances are high to sneak it out. So it's going to be key for the Dodgers to get into the ninth inning, even to the eighth inning, with a 3-run lead at the bare minimum, if they're going to have a solid chance to win these games. And if you look at the Dodgers, obviously you always want to win a series, but this is critical for them to get 2 out of 3 in Colorado with no Jansen and then being back 1.5. It's the Diamondbacks are going to want the same thing. The Diamondbacks are like, Dodgers, can you please sweep them? But they're going to have to do their part. Speaking of the Diamondbacks, they're going to have to do their part. They lost yesterday's game in extra innings to the Braves. So again, they're 2.5 back now with the Rockies having the day off. The Dodgers had the day off yesterday. 3 more games left with the Braves. It's a lot to ask for them to sweep the Braves from here on out. That's 3 games, but my mom just commented talking about my Broncos are not in the top 10 list. Not yet. Not yet. They were 5-11 last year. We have high hopes, mother. High hopes for the Broncos. But they're not in the top 10 yet. Can they get in the top 10 with a win with the Seahawks versus the Seahawks? Remains to be seen. We'll see. I expect them to beat the Seahawks. Do they get into the top 10? Depends what happens underneath them. If I remember clearly, the Broncos are all number 15 on my rankings. So see, I'm unbiased. You know what I'm saying? I didn't put the Broncos in my top 5. I didn't put them in my top 10. They're 15. Let them creep into being one of those top 10 teams. We'll see if they get it done. But back to Diamondbacks, you don't expect them to get the sweep on the Braves. If they did so, it would be good for them and for their chances to stay in the division. But if you're a Diamondback fan, you're hoping for 2 out of 3. If you're the Diamondbacks, same thing, obviously. And the Braves continue to hold off the Phillies. They still have a 3-game lead over the Phillies. And the Cubs still have a 4-game lead over the Brewers. And then I think it's 4.5 or 5 over the Cardinals. But you have the Brewers and the Cardinals in a wild card. They're 1 and 2, respectively. And then in that third spot, just outside the wild card, is the Dodgers at 2 games behind the Cardinals. So 2 games behind the Cardinals, 2.5 behind the Brewers. So it's time. The Dodgers right now, their sole focus is to win a series against the Rockies. Figure out a way to have a 3-run lead going into the 8th inning, because anything less than that, that's some scary business for the Dodgers, especially when you're playing in Coors Field. But you got Kershaw tonight going against Gray. We'll see how it turns out. So it's the ace. We're gonna need, when I say we're, because I'm a Dodger fan, obviously. But the Dodgers are gonna need Kershaw a good 7 innings. Hopefully he doesn't give up more than 1 or 2 runs, and for the offense to put up 5-6 runs by the time the 8th inning starts, and we have our relief pitches coming in there. So that's what you look for as a Dodger fan. Rockies, man, if you're able to win tonight's matchup against Kershaw, you're licking your chops, because you got Freeland pitching tomorrow, and they're going to be favored in that one. So it's a big game for both teams tonight. Tonight's going to decide, in my personal view, if whoever wins tonight will win the series. I don't believe either team will get the sweep, but whoever wins tonight will win the series. If one team gets a sweep, it's going to be huge. And if you're a Diamondback fan, you're hoping the Dodgers win the series or get a sweep, and you figure out a way to get 2 out of 3 or sweep the Braves here in the last 3 after losing last night. But things are still getting crazy in the National League. We're going to revisit here the baseball on Tuesday. Monday, I'm going to have a show, but it's going to be primarily what happened Sunday. Yes, that's all we're going to do. Tuesday, we'll get back into the swing of things when it comes to baseball. Talk about the Monday night game. But baseball, again, full force. Hope you guys are watching it and having fun with it. Big series coming up this weekend for all these teams that are in the hunt. Again, man, you got to love it. You got to love baseball right now. And then one last note before I'm out of here. Basketball Hall of Fame, several members, but I'm going to speak about one guy. And it's near and dear to my heart because this is my favorite player all time. And I truly believe he is the greatest player in Phoenix Suns history. And it's not just something that's because it recently happened, because I remember Charles Barkley. But he just didn't play long enough for the Suns for him to be considered the best player in franchise history for the Suns. Steve Nash played a lot more years with the Suns, 2 different stints. If you remember, he was drafted by the Suns before he was traded to the Dallas Mavericks. And then from there, re-signed with the Suns when the Mavericks kind of saw his value lower than what it was. And that's when he was barely starting to break out of his shell and become the point guard that he became to be. And to me, Steve Nash, people give the whole Steve Nash and 2 MVP thing that it should have been either Kobe or Shaq. That to me is bull sugar. And let me tell you why. It wasn't just because he only averaged 15 points and 11 assists or 18 points and 10 assists in those seasons respectively. You have to look at what kind of impact he made when he was on the teams. Especially coming back to the Suns in that second term. That Suns team was a 28-win team when he came back. And he turned that 28-win team, because they already had Stoudemire, they had Shawn Marion, and Joe Johnson. Man, you know, he was getting into the player he was going to turn into. But all it took was Steve Nash, and yes, they signed Quentin Richardson. He was part of that starting 5 that just 7 seconds or less. And they had the best record in the NBA that year. But it wasn't because of how many points he scored. Obviously, he had the 11 assists. And people say, well, 15 and 11 is not. It sure is when you have those players and you're able to create for those players and make things easier for them to lift their confidence and to make them feel that they're better than what they actually are. Because he made everybody around him better than what they actually are because he was the leader and he did what was necessary to get the most out of his teammates. Because to me, Steve Nash could do whatever he wanted. Obviously, he wasn't a dunker. He wasn't the fastest guy. His defense was, we're still looking for it. But the guy in his career only averaged 10 shots a game. And he has a career average, I think it's like in the high 14s or low 15s. He could have easily been a guy that averaged 24, 25 points a game with a high percentage, you know, taking 15, 16 shots a game and still average 8 or 9 assists. And then people wouldn't have made a big deal about him being MVP. And he could have done that easily. He was one of the best shooters just everywhere on the court. Whether it was inside, mid-range, from the 3. Obviously, he was an awesome free throw shooter. But Steve Nash just made the team that much better. If you just look at the games when he was on that team where he didn't play, the Suns looked horrid, wretched. It was just ridiculous how much of a difference it was. He was the actual quarterback of a team. It's like when you took Peyton Manning off the Colts and you saw that, well, they ended up, 3-13, 2-14, when they were always 13-3 or 14-2 with Peyton Manning. That was the impact Steve Nash had with that team. He propelled the Mavericks, once he figured it out, to being a bottom barrel team, because in those times the Mavericks were the bottom of the barrel, to them getting to the Western Conference Finals. Yeah, it took a little bit of growth from Dirk Nowitzki, but I'm pretty sure Steve Nash had something to do with that. And Michael Finley was in the fold as well. So don't underestimate Steve Nash's worth when you look at best point guards ever. I'm not gonna say he's the best point guard ever. I'm not gonna do that. That would me being a little bit too my fandom would show. But he's top 5 point guard all time. Steve Nash is a top 5 point guard all time, and I slightly put him ahead of Jason Kidd because Jason Kidd made more of an impact from the beginning and was a horrible offensive player when it came to shooting and slowly got to being an average shooter. But he was still taking shots. That was the difference. I mean, his defense was on point. He was a rebounder. He was an all-around player. He's still getting the assists. But when it came to Steve Nash, he's like, you know what? I'm going to get everybody else involved. I'm going to make sure I get the best out of this guy because I can get me when I want to get me. And I kind of wish that he could have been a little bit more selfish. Not so much. Him not winning the championship is what it is. It was what it was. It didn't happen. But if you look at it, and if you break it down, I don't want to break down every series, but there was always something happening to one of his teammates, a main cog, or he had a teammate like Amari Stoudemire out for a whole year. And for him to still be able to get his team to the Western Conference Finals on 3 separate occasions, the first year against the Spurs, the following year against the Mavericks. And if you remember, the first year against the Spurs, Joe Johnson had a facial fracture, and he came back for the 4th game of that series. The series was over. And that's when Joe Johnson was taken off, and he became the Atlanta Hawk Joe Johnson. Yeah, that Joe Johnson. Don't forget, he was awesome. Mavericks, no Amari Stoudemire, and Rajah Bell. Yeah, I remember all this stuff. Rajah Bell, who was a key component, was gone after Game 3. He tore his calf muscle. Yeah, that's a big deal. And the series was 2-2 at that point. Lost that series to Dirk. Dirk got the no, they didn't get the championship. They lost to Miami Heat. So those 2 times, man, Nash would have won the championship against LeBron and Dwayne Wade. And then the 3rd time, I don't see them. They weren't going to beat the Lakers and Kobe Bryant. But if you remember Game 5, the series was 2-2. The game was tied, and Lakers and Grant Hill was doing a great job on Kobe Bryant, and Lakers got a pass into Kobe. Kobe turned around, shot a long 3, airballed it, landed in Ron Artest. What's his name now? World Peace Freebie, whatever he calls him. Meta World Peace. Caught it, layup, game over, and it is what it is. But these are etched in my mind. But Steve Nash, 2-time MVP, to me, in that era, was the best point guard, hands down. Top 5 all time. You can figure out where you want to put him. But Steve Nash was better than what he actually showed. But it was more so because he wanted to make sure he got the best out of everybody else. And that is the definition of a true leader, to be able to pull out the best out of somebody and make them slightly better than what they actually think they are and what they actually are. So Steve Nash, congratulations, Hall of Fame. Jason Kidd's also in there. Other guys, but who cares? It's all about Steve Nash. Man, best Suns player ever. My favorite player all time, Steve Nash, the God. And with that, thank you for joining me here live on the Fast Break Sports Hour. Man, subscribe, like, comment. Do it now. If not, just watch it. You're going to have a little bit of fun. But it is what it is. Thank you guys for joining me here on the Fast Break Sports Hour. I got nothing else to say for y'all. I'm trying to get some exit music, but we're not going to get no exit music. Peace out. Love y'all. Bye, mama.